did you miss us? We are back. It's a wrestling perspective. Well, kind of back. First and foremost, for everybody, first-time listeners, thank you so much for checking out the Wrestling Perspective podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell. Petey Williams will be joining me here in a minute. I just want to do something special. This week was the debut of our radio show. You've heard us talk about it if you're a fan. If you're not, we are now part of SB Nation Radio, which supplies content to about 100 or so different radio markets throughout the United States. We are part of that group supplying content to, I would guess, about between 80 and 100 different radio stations all over the United States. So it's really cool. What we're doing today is we are going to play the very first episode. In it, we talk about Becky versus Charlotte. It was right before Wrestle Kingdom, so we kind of did a little preview. Petey told some Wrestle Kingdom stories from when he was in, I believe, Wrestle Kingdom 2. If you didn't listen live, I wanted to give everybody a chance. I'm not sure if we're going to upload every radio show, but I wanted to debut the first one for you guys. This would not have been possible without Blue Chew. Please head over to BlueChew.com, use the promo code WPP, and get your first order for free. You just pay $5 shipping and handling. If you have any questions, you can go to BlueChew.com. It's made with the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know it works. It's chewable, so it works half the time as the pill takes. You can hop in the shower, come out, and you're ready to go. I use it. I like it. I know a lot of you people out there are sitting there going, I don't need a pill. Trust me, I've heard it from a lot of people. It doesn't matter if you need it or not. Just try it. And even if you don't want to try it, but you want to support the podcast, go get an order. Leave it in a drawer, but it's the best way to support the podcast. So if you like the podcast, you want to support us, maybe you have $400 and that's all you have, huh? It's a little nod to a buddy of mine. Take part of it. I wouldn't even say part. $5 out of that still leaves you with $395 to go do whatever you want. Buy your Gucci shoes or cologne. I don't know. But, with Blue Chew, you'll have Gucci shoes and Blue Chew. So that's the best way to support the podcast. But without further ado, thank you, SB Nation. Thank you to the people who've downloaded, the fans. We would not be here without your support. I present to you the very first episode of Wrestling Perspective Radio.
Hey, any of you guys feel like wrestling?
Are you ready?
This is Wrestling Perspective on SB Nation Radio.
And on SBNationRadio.com.
Presented by Quicken Loans. From the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's your host, Dennis Farrell.
Break it down. You can tell me what to do.
Welcome to the first full week of 2019, the first Friday of 2019. It's the Wrestling Perspective. It's what you need. It's what you crave. Heard in over 80 radio markets. I'm Dennis Farrell, and joining me is my co-host, Impact Wrestling's own Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
Oh, Petey, we go from podcast to radio. 2019 is amazing.
Man, this feels like so different. I'm not used to this. I mean, honestly, Dennis, I'm really not. As much as I've done in my life, I'm not used to this.
I feel like we're just a step above the Pursuit Network right now.
We're already starting with the Pursuit jokes. You know what? You should have rephrased that and said, I think we're a step above Pop TV, maybe. Huh?
Nope. I'm going all Pursuit jokes
today.
All right. 2019 Wrestling Perspective. You'll hear it every Friday night. on your local radio station. Thank you guys so much for welcoming us into your homes and radios. We have a jam-packed show, Petey, today. We're going to talk news. We're going to talk some of the WWE rule changes that are already being affected by the new McMahon regime coming back into power. Pete, we're also going to discuss Asuka versus Becky Lynch. Who deserves to be the Women Wrestler of the Year? We're going to take a look at what Chris Jericho's 2019 could look like. And Seth Rollins, is he still the face of Raw? If we remember correctly, a couple years ago, he was handed the opportunity to be the face of Raw. In your opinion, we'll get it a little bit deeper here later in the show. Quickly, is he still the face of Raw?
I would say possibly yes.
Oh, interesting. I think Raw is faceless right now. It's like the Titanic at this point. We're going to... Oh, by the way, Petey, happy Wrestle Kingdom 13.
Yes, I was at Wrestle Kingdom 2. I performed in that. So 11 years later, still going strong. Happy Wrestle Kingdom 13 to you too, Dennis.
Can you give me a very quick idea of what they're going through right now over there at Wrestle Kingdom?
I mean, when I was there, I'll be honest with you, I had the flu. So, I mean, it was kind of all a blur to me. I know we had to get driven by a minivan to the entrance ramp. There was a backstage. The arena is so big that you have to actually drive on the street to get to, what we call the gorilla position. And it's kind of relaxing. I mean, it's chaotic, but it's also kind of relaxing. It's such a big arena that you're not stepping over each other. And it's just like a great feeling wrestling at the Tokyo Dome.
All right, wrestling perspective right now on your radio. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll get into some wrestling news, things that will help you get into the weekend. It's Wrestling Perspective. Wrestling Perspective, back myself, Dennis Farrell, Impact Wrestling's Petey Williams. Pete, let's get into some news notes and what is happening in 2019 right off the bat. A lot of big things going on. Let's talk a little bit about Impact and what's going on in your own backyard. Trevor Lee is leaving town. DJZ, which I don't know too much about, is, contract has expired. Let's talk a little bit about these two guys and if this is going to be a major blow to the roster going forward.
DJZ, since I've been back, I think he was out with some sort of pretty serious injury. And then he came back. He won the tag titles, I think, maybe early 2018. And then just kind of was that one set of tapings kind of deal. They dropped the tag titles and then he kind of went on, but he's a great talent. Andrew Everett was his tag team partner. He already resigned from the company. And DJZ was there for quite a while. I remember I met him back in Pittsburgh when I was first under contract with when it was TNA, and I can't remember what his name was. It wasn't DJZ. That was like kind of evolution of his character. And I remember him coming up to me. I think I was either his tag team partner or going against them. And he says, "Hey man, I do this thing called the Filipino Destroyer." And I'm like, okay. And it was like kind of like a neck breaker where a guy landed on his head. And I'm like, all right, cool. So like right away, I knew he was, a fan and all that kind of stuff. And, but he'll be totally fine. He's such a talented guy. Is it a blow to the roster? I mean, yeah, he's super talented, but he also hasn't been on our program for, at least 8 months. So, but he'll be fine wherever he goes. And then Trevor Lee as well. Like, I'm a huge fan of Trevor Lee. He's so young. I was there for I actually aged in his last match against Killer Cross. And he's so talented that he'll be fine wherever he goes. And I would say that's a bigger loss to the roster just because he's the type of guy that can wrestle any style. He can go on the indies and put on an hour-long match. He can also do like a 5-minute quick-paced match like on television. He's such a great base. I mean, I really can't speak highly enough about him. And I think in time, this was a good learning experience for him in Impact. And I think he'll mature throughout his career. And I think I think he's going to go on to do some big things.
We had a lot of fun over on the podcast. If you guys are new to the Wrestling Perspective, Petey and I do a weekly podcast. You can go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Check out some of the back shows. We have amazing interviews. And over the course of this radio show, we'll kind of clip some of the past interviews up and mix in some of the newer ones we will be doing in and out, so you guys on the radio here can get a good flavor of what we do. Moving on, All Elite Wrestling. It's just been the talk of the town for the last month or two, basically, and what it's coming out now, and we're getting more details as 2019 is rolling in. Petey, we find out Tony Khan, the co-owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, will be the president of All Elite, and then we'll find the Young Bucks and Omega as vice presidents, which is interesting because the Young Bucks are not signed to a contract yet.
Are you talking about AEW or
Yes.
ROH or
AEW?
I mean, if they're the vice presidents, I mean, do you have to be signed to I mean, I guess you do. I mean, when you look at Demora Impact and stuff, they're under contract and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's how they roll. I mean, those guys are all friends. They kind of built this whole all-in thing together that no contracts need to be offered yet. And I think the Young Bucks are still under contract with ROH, so they really can't, sign any contracts or be offered any contracts or anything like that, because that's a breach of their current contract. So that kind of makes sense.
AEW, by the way, January 8th, Jacksonville, Florida. If you're listening, a major announcement for their pay-per-view, which they did break, Double or Nothing. And the logo, by the way, seemed a lot like the Impact's Las Vegas logo, but that's neither here nor there. But there is a rally for Double or Nothing in Jacksonville, and we'll find out more about this pay-per-view. Do you think it's foolish for them to roll into a pay-per-view, a special, or a show without having a television contract, or is that smarter than their part?
That's smart. If you look at Impact when they first started, they were a weekly pay-per-view show on Wednesday nights. You had to pay, I think it was $10, and this is before like live streaming and all that kind of social media stuff. And you had to pay $10. I think it was 10, might have been 5, I don't know, to catch our weekly. It was like our TV show, but you had to buy it on pay-per-view, and people would tune in and stuff like that. And they did that for years. I want to say they did that for 2 years, I believe, before they actually signed a TV contract. So I think that's actually smart on their part, because then they could build on these pay-per-views if they do, for a year, once a month, or whatever the case may be, that people will want to kind of watch that, and then they'll be like, yeah, okay, that's their stepping stone. Now we're going to have a TV deal. Totally makes good business sense to me.
And finally, Petey, the man with 3 names, 3 first names, I might add, the Green Power Ranger, Jason David Frank, is getting into the wrestling business. And for whatever the reason on the internet, this has created a little bit of buzz. To me, it's not like David Arquette. This is like the Green Power Ranger. I grew up outside of the age of the Power Rangers. It's not in my wheelhouse, so maybe I'm a little bit disconnected. But the Green Power Ranger in wrestling, do you see any interest in this?
Yeah, I mean, Frankie Kazarian, I'll just take it back to that. I think the Black Power Ranger was in a movie. He starred in a movie that Frankie Kazarian was in. I think it was called Backyard Dogs. And it was about wrestling, like backyard wrestling, but it was like totally so campy and a total B movie type deal. And the Black Power Ranger played a role in that. And I asked Frankie, I'm like, how was he? And he's like, oh, he's super athletic. So, he was easy to kind of grasp the stunts or the moves or whatever the case may be. So I could see the Green Power Ranger doing really well. The question is he going to wear his Green Power Ranger outfit when he wrestles?
Can he?
Probably not. I bet, but why not? Right? I mean, on the independent circuit to get a name for himself, sure, absolutely. He can't call himself the Green Power Ranger, though. He would have to say something else. But I could see him wear that outfit.
And finally, with the next couple minutes here, I want to talk something a little sensitive. Nia Jax recently tweeted out something. She took issue with the WWE not including any minorities and posted a short but strong response to a picture tweeted out with the hashtag "We Are Here Too" with a emoji of a woman of representing color. When they posted out, I think WWE put out a tweet that said, "There's no denying it. The women of the WWE brought it in 2018," and it's 4 white women in this tweet. Now I'm with Nia Jax on this one. Where Nia, by the way, deserves to be one of these 4 pictures. I mean, Carmella was dominant, sure. But when you put the 2 Australian duo of the Iconics in one of the pictures, I think they could have been left out. You had to have put Charlotte. You had to put Becky. You kind of had to put Carmella since she dominated the middle of 2018 as the champion. But the Iconics, you could have ousted them and put any number of women.
So Ronda wasn't in the picture?
No Ronda.
Okay.
But no Nia Jax, no Boss, nothing.
Okay, so maybe that's really interesting. And I don't know. Now, business-wise, you might think I think the Iconics are Australian, correct?
Right.
So they might be trying to reach out to that market, and that's why they had to do that. So it might be more than just here's 4 white women. It might just be okay, obviously these are our 2 top stars right here, Charlotte and Becky. Okay, they're on it, and then. Okay, what market are we trying to reach? Okay, Iconics. Okay, we'll hit Australia. That's a big upcoming building market for us, so we're going to do that. But yeah, I mean, Jax, she was all over.
She was
WWE and everything for almost the whole entire year. I mean, she held the title and all that kind of. She fought Rousey
twice.
I think one of her first matches, her singles match. So, but you never know. I mean, she could still have heat from Boston Open, Becky, so they might have had her set to be on that poster and then took her off. You don't know all the backstage politics.
All right, Pete. When we come back, we are going to talk more women's wrestling. Asuka versus Becky. Who deserves to be the Women Wrestler of the Year? Welcome back, Wrestling Perspective. Back on the air, myself, Petey Williams. Happy Wrestle Kingdom 13. Pete, you mentioned at the top of the show you were at Wrestle Kingdom 2, I believe it was.
Yes, Wrestle Kingdom 2. It was I was a last minute kind of addition. I believe I took the place of Loki. For whatever reason, he couldn't make this show. I don't remember the specifics, but the match was myself and AJ Styles and Christian Cage at the time.
Wow.
Against Milano Collection AT, Monaro Tanaka, and Finn Balor.
That's
when he was Prince Devitt. Yeah,
that's an all-star lineup right there for your first Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, we were opening match. I remember the place is huge. It's a Tokyo Dome, and I remember I worked out this morning with Prince Albert and Chris Daniels and AJ and the whole crew. We took a subway down to the Gold's Gym and stuff. And I remember having a protein shake, and right after that protein shake, my stomach felt very, very heavy. And maybe I was coming down with the flu. I don't think it was food poisoning. I don't know if it was the milk that they used over there. And man, I was just I was keeled over beforehand, waiting to go out. And I did the match. I kind of sucked it up like you're supposed to. And I did the match, and then right afterwards, I get to the back, I lay down, and I stand up, and I just vomit all over the place. People thought I was injured, and I'm like, no, man, I got the flu. It was bad. I went right back to the hotel and just passed out.
Wow. What was the reviews from your match, if you remember?
I don't remember. I mean, this is back when before Barack Obama was president. I believe it was the primaries against Barack and Hillary Clinton. So that's dating myself. I remember because I was laying in bed sick, just waiting for the next day, and CNN is the only English channel at the time at the hotel, and I just remember them going back and forth for the primaries. I think they said it was good. I really don't remember too much.
All right,
we had a good match. I remember liking the match.
Let's get into some topics of the week. Don't forget, here in a few minutes, we'll talk Asuka and Becky. Stay tuned for that. Jericho's 2019, and is Seth Rollins still the face of WWE, Raw, That's all to come. But right now, I want to talk about some of these rule changes that are going on camera with the WWE. A week or two ago during the holidays, the McMahons basically come out, I believe it was Triple H, and said, hey, look, from here on out, there's going to be no more automatic rematches. That's something we grew up on. I mean, there are rules that have gone by the wayside, like you have to defend a championship every 30 days, which I wish they would bring that back. Truthfully, I think that would be a great tool in storytelling. But you have this rule now of getting rid of automatic rematches. As Petey Williams, who held a belt at least once, how do you feel about, no more automatic, rematches?
Oh, I never got one when I lost my belt. I mean, the first time to AJ, at the Ultimate X, I didn't get a rematch.
Did you think
not an automatic one, anyways?
Did you think you would?
No, it's fine because that's all. Automatic rematches is just, and I'm sure if you go back and really like pick out everything that's happened in wrestling, not everybody that lost the title gets an automatic rematch.
Or deserves.
Sometimes they just go on to the next, match. The only reason why they use that is that, okay, why does he get a rematch? Oh yeah, the automatic rematch clause. That's why. But they just want to continue the storyline and all that kind of stuff. But, a lot of the times you don't just get an automatic rematch. If you look at when Daniel Bryan won his WWE championship at I think it was like WrestleMania 30 or something like that in New Orleans, and he beat Randy Orton and Batista. His next title defense wasn't against Randy Orton, who lost the belt. It was like against Kane or something like that. So, I mean, it doesn't always happen. I remember back in WrestleMania 6, okay, I didn't even know the automatic rematch was a clause, was a rule. WrestleMania 6, you had Hogan versus Warrior, but I remember them saying there will be no rematch. This is the only match. There will be no rematch. They really hit that home with the audience, and that's why I remember it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't expecting a rematch, but they usually get a rematch. Oh, okay, this is the one and only. So, they probably just did that just to kind of just throw it out there, like, we're changing a rule. Well, it never really was a real rule to begin with in the fictitious world of story writing. They're just throwing that out there now, like, it's no longer. But you're gonna see guys saying maybe they have to earn their title shot again, or whatever the case may be.
And you saw that with Seth this week.
What's that?
And you saw that with Seth Rollins this week, where Triple H come out and said, "Hey, you're not going to be given a shot anymore, a Mac rematch. You have to earn it." So they are setting that up to earning it. But I set that up to talk about something that's been kind of rumored, and I think this could be a real true blue rumor. And I try to stay away from dirt sheets, but the internet's running away with this rumor that you could actually see pins involved in the Royal Rumble, which means if you're a casual wrestling fan, when someone gets thrown over the top rope, they're eliminated. They're out. That's the only way to be eliminated out of that match. Now, you could actually see pins and maybe countouts. I'm throwing that part in. Pete, I'm a purist. I'm not sure I want to see my Royal Rumble messed with. Look, you want to put that into a Battle Royal match? Sure, I'm okay with that. But I want to keep my Royal Rumble pure, and I want to keep my Royal Rumble just different enough from every other Royal Rumble that no pins in my Rumble, Petey.
Well, you know what they might do, and it's something that we do at Impact in our gauntlet match. We don't call them Royal Rumbles. We call them gauntlet matches. A new person comes out every minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever we decide is, fit for our, segment. And then, it's over the top rope, like a Battle Royal Rumble. And then the last two in the ring, it's pinfall. It's no longer over the top rope. So I could see them doing something like that, especially if you're going to earn a WrestleMania, title, like main event, like title match, that kind of thing. Like, okay, let's make it a pinfall at the end, which makes sense because, there have been over 30 Royal Rumbles, right? Mm-hmm. And you've seen every type of top rope elimination you could possibly see. It's kind of, okay, it's getting stale. So, maybe we'll make the last two, pinfall, submission, whatever the case may be. I don't think the pinfall will work because when you have, let's say, when it gets pretty packed and there were 10 guys in there, is a ref going to slide in the ring and count the 1, 2, 3, I don't see that happening.
I'm not a big fan of it. I can see where that could add excitement, but I compare this to baseball, where I hate winter baseball playoffs. Mr. October, it's cold, you're wearing turtlenecks. Why are you playing your championship game in a season where things are different than when you played the other 180 some odd baseball games? Keep the competition the way it was in day one. Just like the Royal Rumble. If the first two people have to throw each other out, then the last two people have to throw each other out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, there's so many different ways to dissect it. I don't want to see pinfalls throughout the whole Royal Rumble if that's what they're going to go for. I think it would be too much of a cluster. Yeah, to add excitement, but it'd be too much of a cluster. The last two, even last 3 or 4, maybe it's a fatal 4-way triple threat. Now it's a pinfall submission. That can be exciting because those types of matches get exciting. But, having the option is good.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think I like it. Like, I grew up, I've watched every Royal Rumble probably 10 times over with the WWE Network. And through my life, I don't know if I can go back and watch any Royal Rumble where I could see that adding a pinfall to it would make it any more exciting. To me, it's just changing the game just to change it. What's the reason? Why would you want to change this?
Like I said, I think it would create more drama with that pinfall at the end, just getting false finishes in rather than, the 1-2 kick out. If not, he hits, something, picks the guy up, goes to throw him out. Oh, he hangs on, and then he pulls him over. Now they're fighting on the apron, and then the one guy backdrops the other guy off or something, and then it's over. They don't it never really ends with the guy's finishing move like normal wrestling matches do. And I think the end of a match should be you hit your finishing move, bam, 1, 2, 3, place goes nuts, or they boo if you're a heel, and he's the winner.
Would you be okay if they added countouts in? Because
no, we can't. No, that's ridiculous.
Now wait a second. Now, how many times in Royal Rumble matches have we seen someone slide out of the bottom rope and hide? To me, that's a bad way of storytelling. You're writing yourself out of a corner by having someone. Oh, is he out? We haven't seen him. Oh no! Come on. If you're going to add pins, you got to add countouts to make it just as much exciting, right?
I don't think that would happen. I just look at it from a production perspective, unless it's a part of the storyline. If a guy's getting counting out and the focus of the camera has to be for that 10 seconds, the ref counting that guy on the ground, and then all the action in the ring is not going to be caught on film. That's not how TV works. It's one focus point at a time. I mean, WWE has the production and the know-how to do it. I just think it would be way too much. The guys in the ring would be just sitting there.
All right, Pete, before we move on, we're going to hit a commercial break here in a second. I do want to tell everybody the show is sponsored by BlueChew.com. Go to BlueChew, use the promo code WPP. You get your first shipment for free. Just pay $5 shipping and handling. If you're enjoying what you're hearing here with Petey Williams and myself, Petey Williams from Impact Wrestling, and myself, Dennis Farrell from the Wrestling Perspective Podcast, you can go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com and get this, other shows. We've had the Young Bucks. We're having Jimmy Jacobs on soon. We're having anyone who's who in wrestling, Pete. So if people want to hear this, they can go over to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com and subscribe. Just remember, on the other side of this break, we're going to talk Asuka versus Becky Lynch. We're going to take a look at Chris Jericho's 2019 and maybe even Seth Rollins. Is he the face of WWE's Raw? We'll be right back. Petey Williams, Dennis Farrell, we're back with the Wrestling Perspective, guiding you into Wrestle Kingdom 13 tonight. We're both really excited for this highly anticipated show for New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you're just kind of a WWE fan, I urge you to go out there and check out all kinds of wrestling. 2018 to me has been the best year in wrestling. Pete, what about you? You've been around, you've been wrestling. 2018, where would that rank all time in the history of year-long wrestling?
Oh man, it's that's a really good question. I would say for somebody like a WWE, when it just comes to interest and stuff, I would say it would rank low. lower than usual. When it comes to the independent market and what's going on, since social media is so big now, I would say that was probably the top year ever.
All right. I want to touch on Chris Jericho real quick before we run out of time, because I know our Becky and Asuka conversation might take up a long time. But Chris Jericho has been rumored to be joining the All Elite Wrestling. Some people are saying he's waiting for a television contract to make up his mind. Other people are saying he wants an open-ended contract where he can come and go. We do know Wrestle Kingdom 13 tonight is the last time he's contracted with New Japan, unless they've worked out something. He's putting the IWGP Intercontinental Championship on the line versus Naito. He only has 2 dates for Fonzie, 5/18 and 9/14. He has his Jericho Cruise, which in 2018 it was in October. I assume it'll be in October again. The rumors were heavy, and you and I, we talked about it on the podcast a lot, that we didn't really see Chris Jericho going to Impact Wrestling, at least this year. I don't think the move to Pursuit is enough to persuade him to go to Impact Wrestling, but with All Elite now being part of the game, where would you put Chris Jericho's chances of going to Impact, or even showing up on Impact in 2019?
I mean, I would still rank them low. I mean, look at it. Like, Jericho's good friends with Don Callis, who's one of the heads of our company. He's friends with D'Amore, one of the heads of our company. He knows our product. He knows, he's friends with people on our product. It's not that. It's just that, Jericho has a lot going on. You just listed for a minute long all the stuff he has going on. I mean, why would he really want to come to Impact just other than for fun? I think at this point in his career, he wants to do something special. He wants to do something that's worth his while, something that, is just different, impactful, whatever the case may be. Would Impact love him there? Yeah, absolutely. But, All Elite Wrestling, he's already showed up at All In. He's already doing stuff with the Bucks and already kind of interacting with them on social media and all that kind of stuff, and Kenny Omega storyline and everything. It makes more sense for him to show up there. It just really does.
Would you be let me ask you this, I guess, going into it, talking about Jericho, you mentioned, listen, one of the guys that we both, I'd say I'm kind of friends with, you're friends with, Jimmy Jacobs, and you know his history with the Bullet Club and the Bucks. Do you worry that, All Elite could wrangle Jimmy Jacobs away?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they could wrangle anybody away, pretty much. They could wrangle me away. Now, I would never leave because, I'm very happy with Impact. I have a lot going outside of Impact, and it's perfect for what I'm looking at doing in wrestling, being right there. But, Jimmy Jacobs, he's an awesome writer. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of him. And, he knows the Bucks. He knows, he knows all those guys. He worked with Cody when he was with him in WWE. So Cody knows Jimmy Jacobs' talents. So yeah, they can obviously take him away, and and it would be a huge loss to Impact. Would it happen? I mean, I don't know. I'm not Jimmy Jacobs. Let's ask him when we interview him.
No, I love that little tease right there. Let's get into the meat and potatoes finally at the end of the show of what we're here for. Becky versus Asuka. Everybody, Becky Lynch right now is the internet darling with the way she's handled Twitter, the heel turn, the hotness that she's had right now. Pete, I'm going to come out and ask you this right now. Do you believe Becky Lynch should be Woman Wrestler of the Year? And let's just keep it in WWE, because you can point to a million different independent wrestlers, lady wrestlers, and say, well, they deserve it over WWE. Let's keep it in WWE. Does Becky Lynch deserve Woman WWE Wrestler of the Year over Asuka?
I would say yes.
I'm glad you did. I'm ready for you.
So, she's just, the movement and stuff like that, she's just been such a big part of it. And I just can't believe, everybody's saying oh, she's the female Stone Cold, or the next Stone Cold, or whatever the case may be. Calls herself the man. That's great. That's my favorite part, that she calls herself the man, and nobody thinks twice of it. And her beef there with Ronda Rousey, I'm so glad they didn't give it to us at Survivor Series, because that should be something that they do at WrestleMania. Asuka, is great, right? And I would say she's a better technical wrestler on the mat and all that kind of stuff than Becky Lynch. But, for what they're going for when it comes to star power and everything, Becky Lynch has her beat.
I disagree 100% with you, Petey. Let's not forget, Asuka started the year with that amazing winning streak until it came to the end against Charlotte at WrestleMania. Sure, she had a very ho-hum middle of the year. And we're talking now, we're like March, April at this point. You look at Becky, outside of the last 3 months, this 2018 for Becky Lynch has been the definition of boring. She hasn't done anything outside this heel turn. You look at Asuka, she had the winning streak. She won the first Women's Royal Rumble. That is huge right there. And hey, whether it's outside interference or not, Sweet Pea, she did just beat Becky and Charlotte for the Women's Championship at the last pay-per-view. So you can't tell me she has not ended this year. Sure, Ronda Rousey, interfered, and I get it. But at TLC, she walked out as a women's champion, which to me, she ends it on a higher note than Becky.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this, when it comes to the Academy Awards, the Oscars, right? Most of the movies that are nominated, they structure their timing of the release of their movie right before Oscar nominations, right? And then that way they get Oscar nominations. Everybody always forgets what happens earlier on in the year. They always do. Becky Lynch did nothing in there. I don't remember. I'm like, Becky Lynch still works for the company? I haven't really seen her on TV. Then she blows up huge, right? And Asuka kind of takes a dip, and the only thing that was her saving grace is that she won this title and got back in this feud. When she got in this feud with her and Charlotte, I thought it was weird. I'm like, oh, they added her in this match? This has nothing to do with her. And then she got the belt back, or she got the belt. So everybody forgets what happens earlier on in the year. That's just that's what we are. If we would have had the vote in July, okay, yeah, Asuka's the 2018 Women Wrestler of the Year. But we just people vote now and they forget about all that stuff. They are voting of what they feel now.
Do you think after what my defense for Asuka, does that change your mind in even the least? Just remind me.
She had a better year. Absolutely. I mean, Becky had her 3 months was phenomenal, or however long it was. I'm just saying 3 months and carrying on. But Asuka, beginning of the year, then she had that streak, and then she she had a great year. But like everybody else and me, I forget about what happened earlier. I'm looking at and feeling what's happening now in the wrestling at the end of the year votes. I'm like, yeah. Becky Lynch is on top of the women's wrestling world right now.
And the problem with WWE is, how many times have we seen someone like Becky Lynch, who is setting the world on fire, and they either pull them back a little bit and ruin everything, or don't pull the trigger on something big, and by the time they're ready to pull the trigger, the moment it's too late. Look, Rusev. I mean, all year long, Rusev Day was the hottest chant in any WWE arena. They didn't pull the trigger. They put him in a stupid angle with Aiden English, ruined both of their momentums, and then finally, this past week, they let him have the U.S. Championship. It was 5 months too late for Rusev, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they have a history of doing that. Somebody catches fire, maybe they don't want them to be the ones that get caught on fire, and they kind of wait, no, this will die out. This is going to last long. Then it lasts long. Man, they're still behind them. All right, we better pull the trigger. And then it's too late because people, back in Seth Rollins, back in the Ring of Honor days, people, when he was Tyler Black, people wanted to see him as world champion, and they wanted it, and they weren't giving it to him, and they wanted it. And then finally, when he won it, the people turned on him because it was already too late and it took too long. So, wrestling fans, that's how they are. It's like, this is what we want. And if you don't give it to us, we don't care anymore. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm worried about now. You look at these two ladies going into 2019. They both have had similar years where, Asuka started out early, faded out. Becky faded out early and got hot at the end. Going into 2019, if you had to put your finger on one of these two ladies that light the WWE on fire, which one would you pick? Who would be, your too early prediction for Women Wrestler of the Year in 2019 between these two ladies?
that's tough because a lot of the times I could see this too, the people turning on Becky, because right now they have the whole machine behind her. And a lot of the times wrestling fans don't like that. They're like, man, they're really pushing her down the throat. I know we were asking for her, but you're really, now she's not struggling to get that stardom. People like that. People really, really like when, you give them a little bit and then you pull them back. It's like, I want it. And then you do it at the right moment. But I think Becky will have, I think Becky will have the better year next year.
I disagree, and here's why. Becky is red, white, hot. I mean, I've not seen anybody, male or female, have a hotter turn in the last 5 or 6 years than Becky Lynch has, what we're watching now. No possible way she can sustain this for a whole year. She's just too hot too soon, and it's just bound to fade away, or WWE is going to do something stupid. They came borderline when Becky got injured with the invasion of, Raw, and she got hit in the face and couldn't compete, and she got to pick who she wanted to face Ronda. She picked Charlotte and hugged her. There, you were getting into that territory of, oh no, here we go. Are we going to, mute down the heel turn? It didn't quite happen. She stayed hot. I don't have faith in the WWE to continue that hot streak.
Yeah, I mean that's the big debate, I guess. I think, and I agree with you, Dennis, on that. Like, it's hard to stay that hot for that long, but you never know what's going to happen with future up and coming women stars. That I think the Ronda Rousey thing, they started scratching the surface. They pulled back on it, which I'm glad they did, and it looks like they're saving it for WrestleMania. That's going to be a big thing. I think a lot of people, and like I said before, when we were talking a year ago on our Wrestling Perspective podcast, I was like, the fans are going to turn on Ronda. And this is what's going to happen. Going into WrestleMania this upcoming season,
they're turning.
Ronda's going to be the heel. And it's because the fans are doing it. It's not that anything she's doing. The fans want to see Ronda be the heel, and Becky's going to be the babyface. What happens after WrestleMania, that's going to be interesting. But she's going to be the hottest thing.
Hold on to your thoughts. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more and wrap up the Wrestling Perspective. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Wrestling Perspective. Guys, if you could hear the arguments between Petey and I during the commercial breaks, holy cow. We are still debating over this Becky Asuka thing. Pete, you're just not going to give it up.
No, I mean, the hottest thing going into WrestleMania is going to be Becky for sure. After that, I don't know. It's going to see what the outcome is. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Pete, I'm excited. 2019. This is the first Wrestling Perspective on anybody's radio. We're excited that you guys have welcomed us into your radio homes, your cars, wherever you listen. Thank you. Pete, I've had a blast doing this.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really exciting one, making this next step. And in the past, it's been like 2 years now that we've been working up with our podcast and everything. It's been a long road, but it's been a good one.
Listen every Friday night. I know you will be, Pete. So will I. We'll have a lot of great guests. We'll replay some past episodes. I know we've got the Young Bucks ready to go for one of our next episodes. I'm really excited about that. Jimmy Jacobs, Eli Drake. I mean, the list goes on and on, Pete.
I mean, and who else am I going to run into? I can't wait when we go to Mexico City for Impact Wrestling to see if we have any new faces. I've been so out of touch over the holidays and stuff of what's going on, and we could see some new faces at Impact that we can potentially interview, and old faces, the editor's return guests, and who knows?
Pete, in a minute or less, what are your feelings when you heard the rumors that Impact tried to sell to All Elite Wrestling?
I don't know if there's any truth to that rumor, but I could be totally wrong. I mean, I don't know why they would. Maybe because we already have the name, we already have a TV show. Maybe they know All Elite Wrestling is looking for a TV show. Is there any truth behind it? I don't know. That's a great question, Dennis.
Can All Elite get a better TV deal than Impact?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think anybody has a good shot at getting a TV deal. TV is just really tough because there's a limited number of channels, a limited number of time slots. I mean, something's got to be gone for you to take over. And that's what's going to be tough for them. But I'll tell you what, All Elite, they're in the perfect spot right now because they don't have a bad reputation. All they have is one show that they did. It's a great reputation. They have so much steam behind them right now and so much momentum that if they do it all right, they can be like the next big wrestling company.
I'm excited. We're going to end the show on that note. Listen, if you cut the show in the middle at the end, you can always find the show at WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Pete, every week it'll be a different feel of a show between you and I, but thank you, man. This has been one of the most fun things. Bringing this a radio. I've had 2 former radio shows with the 4-letter network doing fantasy football. I'm glad to see us finally grow the podcast into a radio show. Where can people find you on Twitter?
On Twitter at @Petey and also on Instagram at, I think, the same thing, Petey Williams.
And guys, you can follow me, Dennis77 Farrell. You can go over to Facebook and like the Wrestling Perspective podcast. There we throw up questions. You can be part of the show. We're really excited to grow this thing, grow the fan base with you guys. Wrestling, it's no longer a dirty little secret to be a wrestling fan, guys. Here we are, 80 radio stations throughout the United States. Embrace your nerdiness. WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Go listen. See you next week.